This is As Seen on TV, where I remake some scenes from movies, television shows, whatnot, just to sharpen my skills, cinematography wise and color grading, and then share that knowledge with you. So today's reference is this, which is a shot from Den of Thieves 2, which if you haven't seen it, go see it. If you have seen it, definitely check out the review that me and my team did here. But let's get into it. Let's get creative. So, getting into part one, the cinematography side of this is the reference shot that was shot Den of Thieves 2. And this is a car scene shot where he's shooting outside the car. So, we were trying to remake this. I believe this was shot on the Venice 2 in 8K. And it was shot on some really expensive lenses. I think they were Zeiss lenses. And I believe from what I could find, this was a 25 millimeter. Um, and I'm shooting with something probably $100,000 less. So let's check out my remake. So the remake of this was with me. Um, my angle was with a 35 millimeter, so it's a little bit tighter. I wish I had something wider because they definitely had. They used. I could tell they used something wider with how much they caught around the subject. But so there's mine. This was shot with a 7 Artisans 35 millimeter lens, full frame, and this was shot on the Blackmagic Cinema camera 6K. I believe the ISO was down below 400, maybe even lower. I did have an ND filter on there, and it was shot in film. So this is 6K, obviously. And I believe the aperture that I used on this was about 2.8. It was very sharp right at the eyes, the nose. It kind of fell off. It could have been 3, actually. I might have backed it up. So not anything too crazy sharp there, but wanted to get this. I wanted to hit the same on the blown out highlights and that. Um, so that's how that was shot, and that's the cinematography side of that portion. So we'll go into part two, which is how I color graded it. So my node tree right now is a little bit um, jacked up because I am actually testing out the structure that I want to use beyond my color correction power grade, which if you're interested, it's on sale. You can go to my website, buy that, and just drop it in. It gives you a really nice base with pretty much anything you're trying to color correct, which is going to be the white balance, exposure, saturation, and contrast. Everything else after that is going to be your secondaries and your look. But this is my note tree. It's getting fine tuned. I'm testing out how I feel about using certain qualifiers and what steps I want to use in progress and whatnot, layers, parallel nodes. So that's where that is to explain this. So it's not nothing too cool looking, but do have the, let me open up the effects again. So I do have the color space transform. And we're just going from film Gen 5 to DaVinci wide gamut. Of course, with Blackmagic, I would do that with any and everything more than likely, unless asked not to. But then the white balance, I white balance that in HDR. I am restructuring my node tree to have this node tree marked as HDR, or this node, sorry, marked as HDR, because balancing out the white balance with the global in HDR just seems to be more satisfactory. Um, so let's see. I meant to turn all these off. So sorry. This first time going at this. So give me a second. Zoom out. All right. So I'm going to actually mark everything here. So let's highlight everything. So I'm going to turn all of this off. So that was pretty much the log shot, or here, we'll disable. That was pretty much the log shot to Rec 709. But yeah, back to the white balance. So turning on the white balance, and you're gonna need your exposure done right to kind of get any type of white balance. So you'll probably set your exposure first, which I also did with HDR. I am using the Lift Gamma the Y gamma, Y lift, and Y gain on the micro panel as of right now for my exposure adjustments. I just like the way that it acts for me. So I am using those. My pretty good balance, I believe. And it was not balanced well at all from camera because I was in a rush. So I wouldn't say it was terrible, but it was more on the bluer side of things. But white balanced that, got that a little bit better. Adding in some saturation, which, if you know, I took this from Colin Kelly. Goodness, I forget his name every time. He is a colorist on YouTube. I continuously jack up his name, but let's see. Yes, Colin Kelly. Sorry, I just always feel like I'm saying it wrong. So shout out to him. He's been my kind of my secret mentor as I've perfected my color grading techniques. But I have taken this saturation node from him, and I know many others use this too. But it's just kind of turning on the HSV color space with that. Gamma stays the same. The channels we're turning off 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, so just focus on the saturation. And I'm adjusting the saturation with the primaries, and we're adjusting the gamma and the gain. Just doing those. Um, I go gamma first, and then I let the gain kind of brighten up some certain areas. Then once that's done, add in some contrast. I added probably a lot to kind of give it that brighter feel there. And that kind of, right there at that moment, you kind of would say it's probably pretty good as far as like a white balance and something good to work with. The next steps that I went into from there was, I'm going to turn both of these on. I'll wait for that one. Was selecting the skin. So I used the HSL on this one. And if we turn on Shift H, did not do it for whatever reason. There we go. Okay, so got a pretty good selection. I took some tips from George.colorist, who's also on YouTube, on just finessing the matte finesse, and just getting a really good selection of this, which was actually a little difficult because the skin and on this gun were right in the same range. Um, so his techniques really helped me out there to kind of narrow that down. But what got it even better was using this next node. So after white balance, I went on to adjusting the skin. And after that, we used something that was called a color compressor. And pretty much ultimately what this did was it allowed me to compress the, let's see if I can scoot this over. It allowed me to compress this key of the skin into this node, and then compress that key into a range which ultimately, um, and I don't think it's not showing up. So I should record my whole screen next time. But anyways, it compressed the skin and allowed me to give some better fine tune adjustments with that. So if I cancel this, and just to kind of show you, you can add, pulling this, you can add some saturation, which might make it more yellow. Drop it back. I got to enable it first. So you can kind of add your saturation there with that. The luminance, you can adjust that and everything, kind of fine tune that how you want to be. This kind of reminds me of where it was before this next node. But I got it to an adjustment that I like right there where it's at. And so that's what I did there to make so I'll disable that and see how the skin, right after the white balance, my skin was a little yellowish. So just to give it a more natural, more reddish tone, which I think matches my skin tone a little better. So anyway, did that, and then the next node here was to, as you can see, with the qualifier section, there was me selecting um, the highlights there and try to add a little bit of a tint. Um, Let me disable that. So see, it was pretty blue up at the top of the highlights. So just to add a little bit of a yellow tint, because remember my goal was to kind of match how this was done out here. Really blown out, but really um, more toward the yellow side of things. Um, so did that there. Let's see, turn that off to give the highlights that little pop that it needed. And in the next node, this was a power window, and as you can see, the face has some shadows in the eyes and everything. It wasn't much. I wouldn't say it was distracting, but you definitely want the eyes to go directly to um, the brighter subject of the frame. Adjust that accordingly with the power window to brighten up the face and kind of make me come more toward the camera. Um, and so that's what I don't know if they did that here or not, but definitely they probably had lights everywhere that they needed it. But with how bright, I would say they were probably shooting maybe toward the sun with how bright that was. So he probably had some shadows on his face, and they probably used the power window too. And then lastly, I used after all my grade before the CST to out to Rec 709, I put in a noise reduction. The noise reduction that I've actually grown to like, and a lot of people are kind of like, especially if you're a pixel peeper, you might have some gripe about it. But I use the spatial noise reduction with the ultra noise reduction and analyze it and let DaVinci do its thing. I used it on my short film and it did wonders. There was some times where I would move it because I was pixel peeping. I would move it into kind of the shadow areas and let it just get a little bit more. But that definitely is going to give you a plasticky look on things. On my short film, I would definitely add a node after, and then probably add some mid detail or something, kind of sharpen it back up. Is what I would do, but I didn't do that here. But that was how I got this final look color grading here. Now I will say, to wrap this up, um, noise reduction at the end of everything has just been something that I've just favored along the way. I've seen plenty of other people kind of break it down, doing it before, doing it after, but this is my take on it. And it's funny, I'm gonna use my wife is a woodworker, and she builds tables. She gets the wood, she planes them, she sands them, um, glues them, stains them, and then finishes them off with a finisher or a clear coat. To me, noise reduction is like a clear coat. I think I want to do everything that I need to do under that, and then just top it off with a nice little clear coat. So that's even thinking about that logically like that for me. I think that even just makes it make more sense. But I know someone might have a different opinion, and maybe you're right and I'm wrong. You can correct me. I don't care. Um, Constructive criticism is always welcome. But I don't know. That makes sense to me right now, and it's working. So that's where I put noise reduction. But that is how I did my uh, remake on As Seen on TV episode of Den of Thieves. So tune in for the next one. Probably going to use these to. I'm probably going to be inspired by whatever we review on the podcast to do these. So subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more. Peace.